Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Let's see who's in the chat. Say hi when you arrive. Christoph is in the house. Good stuff. Roger from San Diego. We got Marcus. We got Rob. We got Steve. John is here. Liviu's here. Ernesto. Silent Phil. Got a lot of new faces too. Good stuff. All right. Got a good showing already. 80 on the stream already. That's fantastic. Good. I'm excited today. I don't think we got to do one of these last month. So the fact that we're getting to do it this month is really, really good. And a good way to kick off the new year for a lot of new Frames users. Just so everybody knows the goal of this stream, what are we doing here? We are basically helping you get more comfortable using Frames. How do you get the frames on the page? How do you customize the frames? How does the workflow work? How do you combine different frames together? If you've run into any issues with frames, you're like, I don't know how to customize this one. Go ahead and bring it up. This is interactive. I'm obviously going to share my screen. I'm going to be inserting frames. I'll be showing you how to customize different things. I'll show you how frames interact with automatic CSS. We can talk about the philosophy of frames. Before we start today, I want to do one thing, which is if you go to getframes.io/docs, we are getting started on the official documentation area for frames. Search doesn't work yet. Don't try to use search. There's really nothing to search. There's just, in these kinds of situations, it's like, basically what we did is we stole this from the automatic CSS site and put it here. And we're like, you know what? It's more important to just get people, we don't have to get every detail honed in perfectly. It's more important that we just start to get docs up, just start to get information in people's hands, and we'll work out all the other details later. And so search isn't hooked up yet, but you can come down here and you can, just click on something. And this one, for example, that I just published recently, a lot of people that have seen this already said that this was extremely helpful. It kind of breaks down the anatomy of a typical frame so that you understand exactly how everything is organized and why it is the way that it is. If you understand the philosophy of frames, for example, it says right here, frames is loosely based on atomic design principles. Well, there's a lot of people that don't know anything about atomic design principles. And I would highly recommend you click that and go read that article on atomic design. Because once this stuff philosophically makes sense to you, then it's way easier to use it, right? You understand why certain decisions were made and how to approach things going forward. So definitely go to the docs and start to read through that kind of stuff. Let me go back here and see. Yeah, so it talks about the BEM classes. A lot of people are confused by the BEM classes that are on there. ID styling in frames. Why would a random frame just have some ID styling? That's actually answered. There's a legitimate use case for why that might happen. That's answered in this article right here. And then, of course, the typical stuff. But this is going to continue to get built out, and we're going to go into as much detail as possible. And we'll continue to produce videos for some of these things. And we just want to make sure that you have all of the resources that you need. And that's really why we do this live stream, because yeah, docs are good. Yeah, video tutorials are good. But at the end of the day, it would be really nice if every single month you actually had access to somebody where you could just be like, dude, just show me this. Just show me this. I don't want to read another doc. I don't want to watch another tutorial. I just want you to answer this question. And that's what this stream is for. We're just answering questions here. We're showing people what they want to see, and we're getting value that way. It's another format, another way for you guys to get the help that you need. All right, so let's go up and let's see here. Okay, Ruben, good to see you. I'm seeing a lot of people who are on my other channel this morning at 9 a.m. watching the premiere of my new video about struggling my way through building something in the block editor. So this is fantastic. I do want to make sure that you guys actually get some work done at some point. Don't just watch my videos. You do have to make money. You do have to deliver for your clients. So don't just spend all of your life watching my videos. Okay, let's go ahead and let's just dive in. I spun up a dev site. Hopefully it works. I haven't even looked at it yet. Let's go do a little test. Let's make sure we can add a frame. That would be a good thing to check. I do, and maybe you guys can help me out here with a little feedback to the Bricks team. I'm not liking this situation right here, because for us, if we only have one template layout system, for example, frames, right? Every time you open the library now, where you could just flip the tab and have the library, now you have to select this, and if you notice, it refreshes, it reloads the library, so you have to sit there a little bit extra longer every time you want to add a frame and wait for it to load. I think that's not fantastic. So maybe give a little feedback in that regard. All right, let's drop in feature section Victor. Okay, looks like it's working. Looks like it's working. Yeah, okay, good. All right, we're ready to rock and roll then. Kevin, you should have a soft welcome sound. I forgot I had one earbud in and you scared the shit out of me. I'll work on that. I'll work on that. All right, Mark is in the house. What's up, Mark? Rick is in the house. Ground pets. Good to have ground pets at all times. I'm a fan of ground pets. Travis is here. Liz is here. Questions need to have the word question in all caps or a Q. Something that denotes that it's an actual question for me and not a question for somebody else or not a random comment. Two Left Feet says, can you run through how to use auto BIM on a larger frame, such as feature section November, where there are frames within frames? Man, zero warm up. Zero warm up. It's not like, hey, can you show me this little thing? It's like, bam, auto BIM, multiple nested frames. Okay. All right, we'll tackle it. We'll tackle it. Feature section November. Feature section November. There it is. Okay. Haven't done anything with this one in a while. It's a very special frame. Semantically, it's a very special frame. Okay, so we have a list. We have feature card Foxtrot, feature card, okay, main list, feature grid November. Great. All right. So I think what most people would want to do here, and I understand this. Guys, it was the first point that I brought up. Christoph's here. Okay, Christoph is in the chat. He'll tell you this is the first thing that I brought up, and we had the little debate discussion thing, and it ultimately came down to, it's the way that you think it should probably work is not really what it's for. And it would be nice if it existed, but there's not a great safe way to do it. Okay, there are cons to some of these things, and we did have this internal discussion and did weigh pros and cons and like, can it happen? Can we make it work? Well, it's not that safe to do this, and it's very hard to identify. We can identify it because we have eyeballs and can read labels and read class names, but to do it programmatically with like a script function, that is a little bit more difficult. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So let's just collapse all of this. I think what people would want is be like, that says feature section November. So I want to rename that to something for me. And so it could be like, my grid or something like that. And then I hit enter here, and then I hit the auto BIM, and I change it to my grid, whatever. And this everything in here renames itself, remaps perfectly, right? And you'll see that if you think that that's gonna happen, that's clearly not about to happen. First of all, AutoBIM does not even give you the option to rename these classes in this situation. It doesn't give you the option to delete and copy styles and create new. It gives you none of the options. What this is about to do is create all new classes, and all the existing classes are going to stay there. And this is just gonna create all new ones and add those new ones to the elements. And this is not what you want, right? Okay, so I wish I didn't change that to my grid. Feature section November. Let's change that back, okay? So if we open this now, we have to analyze and look. And this is why, let me go back to, not Gear.co. Let's go to getframes.io/docs. Okay, and then we look at frames and BIM classes. Okay, and it talks about block classes versus element classes. And this is such an important concept to understand. If you don't understand BIM, you will struggle with auto BIM. Naturally, that makes sense, right? You don't know what BIM is, really, fundamentally. So yes, you are gonna struggle a little bit with auto BIM. But the minute you unlock this like BIM concept in your mind, then auto BIM makes perfect sense. Auto BIM is not a bulk renaming system for just generic, and it's not a magic wand either, okay? Like this idea of auto BIM here, and it knows, you want the script to know that this is actually another parent block and not an element. Even though structurally it's a child element, you want it to magically know that it's a parent block that needs its own class stem. And then down here, in this list, which is another child element, you want it to magically know that this child element, this multi-level grandchild element is not actually a child element. It's its own parent block with its own unique stem. It's hard to programmatically do that, right? So BIM, the way auto BIM works, if you look at this, intro alpha, by the way, is a completely separate parent block frame. This is just an intro frame that's used in a gazillion different frames. So that needs to not even be touched when we try to auto BIM this situation. That's another factor that would have to be calculated into an auto BIM on the top level item affecting all of its children. I think you can start to see how complex this actually gets when you're trying to programmatically do this. So what we have to know as users is what's a block and what's an element. What is a block? Obviously BIM, B stands for block, E stands for element. What is a block? What is an element? This is a block, this is a block, this is a block. Now, which blocks have renameable elements in them, okay? So feature section November has no renameable elements because its children, its direct children, are blocks in themselves. Well, we can't affect those, so we're not gonna auto BIM feature section November. You can only auto BIM things that have blocks that have renameable child elements. Okay, so intro alpha, no, we're not touching that. Feature grid November, does it have renameable childless elements? No, it has a list. Okay, actually it does, it has one because feature grid November _ features list, but that's the only one, okay, in this image right here. So there's two things, but that's not really the thing you wanted to get to. That's feature card Foxtrot is the thing you actually wanted to get to. That's its own parent block with renameable children. We open this, now all of these things can be auto-BIMmed right here because they belong to this thing right here. So if I hit auto BIM on here, feature card Foxtrot, now I'm saying like my feature card, and look at the option I have to rename or create new and delete old, copy styles. Everything now that I expected is actually happening. And so I would actually start, when you're auto BIMing, start from the most deeply nested block level element, which in this case is the card, right? So bulk rename the card. Then you can come up here and you can say, I want to do feature grid November, which is going to only affect these two children right here. And so if we open this up, we're going to look in here and it's actually, look, it's already identified, hey, you're going to rename the list because that's a renameable child element, but we're going to skip all those cards because it already knows that those are blocks by themselves, right? And then you're going to come down here and rename the main image. It's going to work just fine on that element right there. Where it will go absolutely haywire is up here, where it cannot any longer programmatically figure out what is what in the structure tree. So yeah, that's, and I know Christoph has a more technical way that he can explain that. And maybe we'll add his explanation to the doc of why this is tough to do programmatically. But that's how auto BIM works. You find the blocks that have renameable child elements and use auto BIM on those, and you don't really use auto BIM on anything else. And people will say, well, feature section November, I wish I could still use auto BIM on here, but that's only one element. Literally all you have to do is create your class, like my section, right? And then copy the style. I understand, it's more clicks. It would be easier if we didn't have to do this. I get it. But it's how it is. It's how it is. You're not really BIMing anything right here. You're just renaming something. And the fact that in bricks, you can't easily like create new, delete old as a native functionality, that's really the problem. So yeah, but it's not an auto BIM thing because you're not BIMing anything. You're just renaming a class. And because the way bricks works, you actually have to create a new one and delete the old one. It's a little bit annoying. And if you find it annoying, I 100% agree with you. It's not that I don't agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I think bricks has needed a class management system for a very long time. It is the absolute next thing that if I was in charge of bricks, after components, we're going to the class manager. So after components, which I know they're working on, and it takes a lot of work. It's very complex. Get components shipped out the door, immediately start working on a class manager. If that was me, that's what I would say they need to do. Okay, let's see. Question is, okay, let's go up. I want to make sure I don't skip any questions. How do you make the feature card India clickable on mobile? We can't get it working. How do you make the feature card India? Okay, so I will add a section, and then in this container, we're gonna add feature card India. Feature card India. Little tip there, while it's loading, you can actually start searching for things, and then once it loads, it'll actually use the search. So you don't have to sit there and wait completely. Let's go feature card India, and then we'll put it inside of the container. And let's just make this a grid real quick because that's what it would probably normally look like on here. So you're saying it's not clickable on mobile? Go to the front end. It's clickable right here. Oh, I probably see what you're meaning here. Because there's no hover on mobile. I don't have an actual phone I can pull this up on right now. Let me make a note of this. I need to test this on an actual device. And then if there is a challenge with it, can you not click the heading down there? What I need to sort out is nothing clickable or is just the heading part clickable? Because if just the heading part's clickable, it's still functional. But if nothing's clickable, it's not functional. It definitely needs to be fixed. So if you have more insight on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna make a note to, I need to get my notepad out here, text edit. Let's do this on the screen over here. I've actually got a different, let's bring this up. Yeah. All right. 1 second, drive.google. Just gonna start a little Google Doc here. Okay. And that was feature card India, I believe. Clickable on mobile. Okay. All right, let me get the chat back. And let's keep going. All right, I will double check that for you. What links the icon controls to the actual icon in the Frames accordion? What links the icon controls to the actual icon? Okay, let's go start off by adding it. So we're gonna say accordion, Frames accordion. Okay, let's go in here. We're reworking this right now. So if you notice, one, it doesn't look good. But two, it uses, I believe, the icons from the icon library, which the way that Bricks handles icons is a little bit limiting. I was watching a discussion actually this morning go back and forth between Nuno and Waji, and it was about, and Mateo, and it was about how we can pull in SVGs instead of icon sets, and there was some complication there. But if we go into Frames accordion, okay, head styling. Yeah, I think let me go back to your question too. What links the icon controls to the actual icon? I'm not 100% sure I know exactly what you mean by that. I mean, this is where you can control the behavior of the icon, right? So it's whether it has a background color or its foreground color or its size, the wrapper size that goes around it. That's what all of these inputs are for. The transform that happens, right? So it rotates 180 degrees on the Z-axis when you have an active state. That all is customizable from right here. I think maybe what you're saying is like you were looking in here somewhere. Now the icon is in here, right? But this is the individual icon for that particular accordion. And if you want to affect all of their behavior, then you use the parent element. So you go to the parent accordion and you come down here, and now you can affect all of them all at once from the top level. You don't have to go icon by icon. You actually don't even have to set a class on a lot of these things. In many cases, some cases you do, but in many cases you don't even need to set classes on the children because you can control pretty much everything from the parent. Now, if there's something you can't control from the parent, then you want to go to the classes route, okay? But if you come in here, this is what I was talking about. See how it loads an icon from ion icons, which now unfortunately means we have to load the entire library. It's not just like loading that one SVG from this icon set, it's loading the entire library, which is not great for performance, especially if you don't use ion icons for anything else. We're trying to switch these to just loading an SVG. And so nice and clean, no extra libraries being loaded. And then you have the same level of control. There's really no downsides. So hopefully that answers your question. Were you going in here and trying to do every icon individually or something, or not understanding these controls right here? If you can clarify your question a little bit more, I can maybe go into more detail. Okay. Question. Do you have a video that explains how to set up modal menu Bravo, running into some issues with the closing trigger disappearing when you use it alongside a sticky header? That's a question I would probably ask in the Frames group if you haven't already. I mean, I don't have... The thing is, yeah, you can set up modal menu Bravo, but then it's like, now there's a sticky header situation. We got to set that up. And let's see, modal menu Bravo. Okay, so that's like the automatic CSS menu, basically. The thing is I pulled this basically from automatic CSS and just renamed everything. And we don't have, does automatic CSS have a sticky header? Yeah, it does. And there's the close icon right here. So there's a solution. I mean, because you're basically seeing that exact frame in action on a site with a sticky header. So it's just a matter of working out maybe a detail or two that might be missing for you. This is where it's best to just say, here's a link to my site. I do want to mention this. A lot of people build on local. I'm actually doing this Q&A session with a site on local. And local is fantastic, okay? There's a lot of benefits to doing stuff on local. There's a lot of downsides to doing stuff on local as well. If you're working with a team, a little bit harder to do things on local. It'd be nice if everybody could just log in and see all the same things all at the same time, right? But the second thing is, if you're the kind of person, and I'm not talking about Rob here, I'm just talking about in general, because I run into this situation all the time. If you're the type of person that does tend to need more help, like more eyeballs on things, stop doing things on local because nobody can help you, right? Like build on something where you have a live dev server and you can easily share links because, and it's one of the, when you put in tickets for help, it's like one of the things that's always missing. It's like, do you have a link? Do you have a screenshot? Do you have any more details? It's always like, my XYZ is not working. What should I do? And it's like, well, I can't see your XYZ. Not in a screenshot, not with a link, not with anything. And you didn't give any more details to what's going on. So it's very difficult to help you. So help us help you and if you're an expert and you're able to debug 99% of your own issues, build on local all day long. But if you are the kind of person that needs help with things more often, don't do the local thing, because we can't help you nearly as much. Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay. Template library needs more work. Need a line, grid, separator, some sorting options for sure. Tell the Bricks team to improve the library. Give some examples on how that might be done. I don't think it's all that bad. I don't really have any problems with the general library experience except for this new dropdown. I hate the template type situation going on here. If you're not up to speed, every template in a third-party library has to be a section. We can't put anything in these other categories because they actually control where the template is assigned, not the actual type of template that it is. So yeah, that's not great. And we've secretly manipulated this a little bit. Like, we've manipulated the thumbnail size. We've manipulated some of these overlay things that you can't see when you have frames installed because they're confusing. I don't think it's awful, but I think everything could be improved. What is the main reason for renaming frames classes? Is it mandatory? Great question, popular question. Let's go ahead and tackle this right now. So if I am going to import a frame, this is really the workflow. It's always so hard for me to explain because this is not the final workflow, okay? Christoph is in the chat. Christoph is working on one last little detail to this workflow, which is going to make a big difference. And I will try to do my best to explain it so that, going forward, it's not a surprise to anybody. But let's say that I wanted to add this frame right here, the feature section Victor situation with the hover overlay images and all of this. Okay. So what I would probably do, and if you think about the philosophy of web design in general, on most websites, there exists something called a card. This is a card. Hey, this is a 101 day, all right? This, guys, is called a card. Okay. So most websites don't use like 8 different card styles for things. If you look at most websites, they rock and roll with like 1 or 2 different card styles. And they use that same card style everywhere, right? So, and the card would typically be named, something that describes it. So for example, like our service cards. Now, you might have blog post cards and service cards are the same, right? But a service card is a service card is a service card is a service card across the entire website. There's not 3 different kinds of service cards. There probably shouldn't be, right? It starts to get, even that can create UX problems. The visitor has a hard time discerning what is what when everything keeps changing on them from page to page to page. It's just better if it's like, here's our service card. This is the card we're going to use for service cards. That's it. And here's our blog post card. This is the card we're going to use for blog post cards. So let's say that this is the thing that I wanted to go with for my service cards. So what I would do is I would come into Feature Grid Victor to this card right here, and I would say BIM, and I would say service card. Now everybody knows, Feature Card Victor doesn't mean anything to anybody, but service card does. And I talk about the 3-month rule where you come back 3 months from now, are you gonna know what is what? And if it says Feature Card Victor, you're gonna you can look at it and, okay, we're using that for a service card, but it's still not so intuitive, right? And this is not the only problem. I'll get to the other problems. So service card, auto BIM immediately. Now, rename? No. Create new and delete old? Yes. Create new and delete old is what we want. And here's why. If you rename it, it will rename them. It'll look good on the surface. Problem is, when you re-import the frame, and there's pros and cons to this, you re-import the frame, it's gonna re-import all the customizations. You are not going to be able to get a fresh copy of that frame. Because the way that Bricks works, when you rename a class, the styles are still attached to a hidden ID that you cannot see. That's how class renaming is actually possible inside of Bricks. And so a lot of people want the ability to get a clean frame, a clean version of the frame from the library anytime they need it. And if you rename classes, you cannot do that. Now, going forward, Christoph's working on the feature right now where all you have to do is rename and then you can get a clean version at any time. It's not a problem. We don't have to do create new and delete old. But right now, you have to create new and delete old. And since you're deleting the old, guess what you need to do? You have to copy the styles from the old and put them on the new classes. Otherwise, you're going to lose them when you delete it. So automatically, AutoBIM is like, yeah, we're gonna copy styles for you because that's probably what you wanna do. Now, if for some reason you don't, then you don't have to. But it thinks you want to by default, and so that's gonna be the situation right there. And then I can just go ahead and apply classes. It shows you exactly what's gonna happen right here to all the classes. You can even change some of these if you want to. But I hit apply classes and it's gonna even confirm, hey, you sure you wanna delete all the old ones everywhere? Yeah, I actually do. Now, these 3 instances of the card are going to break. Why? Because their classes just got deleted, okay? So you wanna do this immediately on import. I'm gonna come over here and delete this. Now, it still says feature card Victor. Why does it say that? Because I didn't check to relabel them. There's an option in there to relabel them if you want to. I didn't check it, right? But this is a service card. So we're gonna say service card. Now, if I look in here, service card content wrapper, service card main, service card label, it's all done. It's all done. And look, this one is not broken because all the styles got copied. So all I have to do now is bang, bang, bang. And actually, in reality, you wouldn't even do that. You need to delete those anyway. Why? Because you're gonna query loop this because you're not a chump, right? You're not a chump. You're gonna query loop this. You already know that. You're not gonna put in manual service cards. You're a great developer who's been studying and practicing, and you're up to speed on things. You have a CPT, custom post type with all your services, and you're already set to query loop this bad boy right here. So you don't even need the extra cards that were in this grid. You only need that one right there. And now you're done. You're off to the races. Now you have your own service card that you can use all throughout this site. And if I ever need to import a clean version of feature card, whatever it was named, I can do that because those classes no longer exist and the styles are no longer attached to them. So this is the workflow. You import a frame, you immediately AutoBIM it to make it your own, and then you move on with your life. And then if you ever need a clean version of that frame, it's sitting there for you in the library. Now, what if you want to save this to the library to use on other pages? Because you don't want to get to another page and be like, oh, I need that service card. How do I get it? Oh, I got to go open that page, open the builder, copy it, come over here and no, that's not the life that you want to live, right? So what do? So we right-click service card after it's been renamed, after it's been auto-BIMmed, you right-click it, save as template. And where are you going to save it to? My templates. My templates. This is mine now, right? So, and this is gonna be a section because you can't choose any of the relevant options. You have to say that this is a section, even though it's not a section. That's the part they need to fix. And then you can organize it if you want to, and then you hit save as template and look at right there is little service card. Okay, so now I go to a different page. So now watch this. We go in, and you can do this with the grid, you can do this with the section, you can do this however you wanna do it. But I go add new page, about, okay, why are we putting service cards on about page? We don't need to talk about that right now, just a little detail. All right, we're gonna come in here and go to templates. Look at what's sitting right here in my templates. I can just insert that card, bang, put it wherever I want to. Maybe if I wanna make this another grid, maybe this can be a 2-column grid, all right? Maybe I can even put in a card manually here, right? Bang, bang, here we are, do whatever I want. So this is always available to you now from my own library in Bricks. That's what I would recommend doing. So once you make something your own, save it to your own library inside of Bricks. Okay, hopefully all of that made sense. Let's go to the next question. Let me edit this with Bricks. Let me get rid of this. Let's get our clean slate back. Okay. Thought for the frames and ACSS team, maybe clips like these are very useful for different documentation articles and could be cut out of the live stream and put in the articles. Yeah, that's a possibility. It offends my OCD because it's not like polished. It doesn't have like an intro and an outro and a dedicated, like, let me show you step by step how to do this thing. It's a little bit more raw. And yeah, it could be valuable, but it does offend my OCD if I'm being honest. Let's see. Question, do you use AutoBIM for newly added elements? I got to remember to move this back. See, we were in Gutenberg land, and that's why I was on the left-hand side. All right. Do you use AutoBIM for newly added elements to an existing section that already had AutoBIM applied? Whatever element is new that has renameable children can be auto-BIMmed at any time. And yeah, I would say the earlier you auto-BIM, the better. So the BIM principle in general is when in doubt, BIM it out, right? Because the first question is, should it have BIM classes to begin with? Well, everything in Frames has BIM classes. So when in doubt, BIM it out, that's already been checked. That box is checked. The next principle is, when do you auto-BIM it out? Wow, right away. The earlier you auto-BIM it, the better off you're going to be. That's kind of the principle there. The class manager is already in progress on the roadmap. Yeah, I know. The problem is it's been there for like a decade. Okay, like since Brix's inception. I can't remember when it was not on the roadmap. Let's start with that. So the problem is it's not moving on the roadmap. And many things that were not on the roadmap, that got on the roadmap, got shipped before the thing that's been on the roadmap forever. So it's one of those things that's lingering. We want to get it actually shipped. Do you have a video here on YouTube, a complete website build using ACSS and Frames? Yes, kind of. Yeah, I mean, on the ACSS channel, the one we're on right now, the one we're streaming on right now, there's a full landing page build tutorial that absolutely uses ACSS and Frames. I built the Zendesk.com homepage, which is a major homepage build, not with Frames, because people didn't want to see that. They just wanted to see the automatic CSS workflow building that page. So that's a great series to watch. There's a couple full builds in the inner circle, and there's going to be more. We're actually going to do, Tommy and I are going to do start to finish Frames for Figma, UX, and then UI, and then Dev. And we're going to do that for some example, like some concept landing pages. So that'll kind of show the whole workflow, including Frames for Figma. All right, let's see. Keep going. All right. On tabs Bravo, how can I color inactive tabs? And how do I change the border radius without messing up the curves at the bottom of the tab? Tabs Bravo is, I got to charge extra for tabs Bravo just to do, that needs to be like an add-on, just to cover support requests for it. Let's go to tabs Bravo. All right. And what we can do, and by the way, if you insert a frame like this, so this is clearly not a section frame, it's not a grid frame, it's a single, it's an atom. It's not really an atom, it's like a molecule in atomic design. It's a bunch of things, but it exists on its own, right? It's not part of a larger thing. So obviously I imported it and I need some structure around it, right? You don't have to create the structure and then like drag it in. Like you would do in Oxygen, kind of. You can right click and then wrap it. And it says wrap with block. We'll just cover this as like a little bonus. Make sure that this is not a hidden feature. Make sure you actually understand what's available to you here. I want to wrap it with a container, right? You can come over here and say, oh, wrap it in a section. Oh, wrap it in a container. Oh, wrap it in a div. So if I click wrap in section, it's going to wrap it in a section. The problem is I don't get my actual container. So I'm going to Command Z that. That one's not as useful. But if you wrap it in a container, it will wrap it in the container. And then you can right click the container and say wrap in section and just kind of build it backwards almost. But now look, I have the proper section container tabs component. So if you didn't know that that was possible, just wanted to demonstrate that for you. Okay, let's open tabs Bravo style CSS. Notice it says, hey, dog, CSS. That's where you want to go. Go to here. So we go to CSS and we start poking around. Obviously, a component like this, a frame like this, is very complex. There's a lot going on. We try to abstract as much of the complexity away from the frame as possible into like an area like this, locally scoped variables. so that really all you have to do is come in and say, oh yeah, that's the container background. That's what I wanted to change. You don't have to go down here and like, what the fuck is going on? Like you don't even have to worry about it. Just look in this area right here and most of the helpers are there for you. So container background is here, and I've just added this recently, tab inactive background. Right now it's set to transparent, so those inactive tabs right there are transparent. But if I change that to red, then they're going to become red, and you can put whatever you want. Obviously you want to use a variable here, right? So you want to do something like action, oh, it wouldn't be action color if it was, let's do neutral, ultra, light, or something like that. It looks like that's what the default color is anyway. You could do neutral light, you could do neutral trans 10, you could do like any number of options here, it's up to you. But that controls the inactive tab color. Let's put that back on transparent for right now. And then of course, if you want to change the active tab background color, you can do that. Now, look what I also added. 2 comments surrounding these 2 things, which should alert you to the fact that this is kind of important. It says, read the instructions further down related to changing background color. Because the way this frame is set up, let me refresh. It is set to have different colors on every tab, okay? And the way that's handled is through these data attributes right here. This allows you to come in and say tab 1 is gonna be success light, tab 2 is gonna be warning light, whatever colors you wanna use here, you can. But this is how each one has a different, and this allows the programmatic coloring of these tabs, because you can actually have these values set in a custom field somewhere and query loop this entire frame and build it dynamically. That's kind of why all this complexity exists, because we have to have all of those options available to people. But what does it say right here? Name the data attribute something that makes sense in relation to your unique use of tabs, or delete this section if you don't want multicolored tab groups. So it's telling you right now, this is not required. You can just delete it if you don't want it, or if you're not comfortable deleting it, take that little comment and put it down here, and that effectively removes all of that styling from being active. And so that's no longer affecting anything. And now I can come up here and this tab active background will actually work. Like I can color this whatever I want, and hey, look at that. Not only does the tab change, but the background of the content section goes with it, because that's how the visual design is designed, right? And then you wanted to change the radius, okay? So I just changed the tab radius to radius M. I can do L. Notice what's happening is it's changing the radius here, the radius here and here, but it's also changing the radius of these images, because this uses what's called a concentric radius style, right? Where this inner radius is actually mathematically calculated based on, it takes the radius and adds the padding that's in here, because in UI design, concentric radiuses are the latest and greatest thing. And so we've built those in automatically so that you don't have to worry about the math or anything else. You just change the radius right here and everything else just kind of remaps itself. But the tab radius is controllable via this locally scoped variable. And that's why these locally scoped variables exist. So a lot of users would immediately feel like, I don't even know what a locally scoped variable is. I don't know what's going on here. But once you understand the concept of these exist to get rid of all of this complexity right here. The last thing we want a user to have to do is come decipher what the hell is going on down here. Because even for me, when I come back 3 months later, I don't enjoy doing that. It's not like you can automatically just, we're not like the Matrix, can't just like plug in, oh, now I understand it instantly. It's like, no, I actually have to sit there and decipher it, which is not fun and it's not efficient and it's not anything. So this allows us to take all the complexity and abstract it into easily nameable, changeable values and tokens. So it makes things a lot, even though to a beginner it might seem like this is somehow complex, it actually protects you from all of the complexity that you don't have to deal with when we do this. And we're the only design set doing this. This is not, you're not gonna find this anywhere else, okay? Like this is a very complex frame. Right? To come in and be like, oh, I want that to be that, I want that to be that, I want that to be that, save, and then you leave. That's not available in any other design set, right? Every other design set that has custom CSS like this, you're gonna have to sit here and decipher and figure out what the heck they did. And they're not using tokens, and they're using static values for everything, and they're not using classes in a lot of cases, and the DOM is a nightmare, and they don't have the accessibility baked in, and. This is why you were a very smart buyer in your purchase of frames versus other alternatives. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, question. I deleted the icon because it looked odd. We're going back to the accordion question that we answered a minute ago. I deleted the icon because it looked odd, so I re-added it, but the transform control no longer works, even if I delete all the classes and re-import the frame. It's okay. That's what you were asking about it being controlled. It's very possible there was a data attribute attached or some other identifier. There's obviously an identifier so that the parent can control all the icons of the children. So it just depends on what got removed. Now, when you re-add the frame, I would expect it to re-add it. So I will try to break that. Let me make my note too. I'm gonna say, try to break accordion. Try to break the, accordion component by removing icon. Okay. All right. After the stream, I will try to break that for you and figure out what may have gone wrong. All right. Where did the chat go? Let's go back to Ecamm. Okay. How far is the header builder? Any news or sneak peeks? Any other frames, elements like tabs, modal, planned, or in the making? The header builder is our next priority. Right now, all resources are directed to 3.0, ACSS 3.0. Once 3.0 is shipped, we will start on the header builder. That's the component that I want the most next, and that I think most users want the most next. So that's the next priority. What else is down the line after that? We got to see. I can't predict or estimate or even consider anything beyond, like, this industry moves so fast. There's so many opportunities also that we have to take a look at. 3 months from now, like, anything I say now could just be invalid 3 months from now. It's kind of insane. Can you show how to implement table alpha on mobile? I tried to use it, but on the front end, it looks like a problem with min width. Table alpha on mobile. All right. I am allergic to tables. I hated the process of creating this table, but we will pull it up. I only use tables when I'm absolutely forced to use tables. Okay, let's put table alpha in the container right here. Let's go view it on the front end. Okay, it is responsive by default, right? And so it's putting the label and the value in on everything. Okay, label, value. And this is how you have to do responsive tables, because there's no other, it's not like grid, doesn't have any of those fancy controls on it. You have to basically manufacture the header rows. And it's actually easier if you come in and give each one a distinct header. But if you look in here, and this is one where I will say this, go to get frames, not /docs, go /frames. Go to the library and search for table. And there's table alpha. And this is one where, especially if you're not super familiar with tables in HTML, you've got to read this documentation. You will have no idea what's going on if you don't read the documentation. And if you notice, there's a lot of frames where I just skimped on the documentation. I was like, let's just get it in the library. People are gonna figure it out because they're not all that complex. Notice this one did not do that. This one, I was like, people are not gonna know what to do in the slightest unless I fully document this frame. So I fully documented it for you, so go and read it. It explains the entire structure of a table and how this is done in bricks. Talks about getting the here's your header data on mobile, right? because data attributes are involved, because they have to be. You have to basically manufacture the header with like a pseudo element situation on mobile to use tables in a responsive fashion. You're forced to do it. It talks about query loop compatibility, talks about all the variables that are used, accessibility notes. So I would say go read this, and then whatever you're running into as an issue, I just showed that it's responsive by default. So whatever issue you're running into, we need more details. Go post in the group. Hopefully you're not on local and can actually give us a link that we can look at, that kind of thing. All right, let's see. Will the older frames be updated with the new methodologies, such as moving CSS from custom CSS to the builder functions? Older frames have grid set in custom CSS. Yeah, I need to write an official documentation article on this. The answer is probably not. And that actually, as the creator of frames, I'm very torn on that, because I understand the reason for the answer, but I actually hate the fact that they're not all done exactly the same. And the reason they're not all done exactly the same, if you go back, you might see a grid template columns repeat to min max 0 1 fr. And it's like, that's odd. Why doesn't that use the grid 2 variable? And that's even odder that it's not in the grid input field and it's in the custom CSS. Why was that done? Well, it's just, like I said a minute ago, I don't know what the hell is gonna happen 3 months from now. When that frame was built, there was no grid 2 variable because we hadn't come up with it yet in automatic CSS. So that's why it says repeat to min max 0 1 fr. And why is it not in the grid input field in bricks? Because that didn't exist either when that frame was created. We were doing it the way we had to do it at the time, given the tools available to us. And so now the question is, are we gonna go back and fix them all? And I would love to. I would actually love to wave a magic wand and it would just be done. But actually what it does is costs a lot of time and resources. And so now we get into a situation where we say, and I'm just being fully transparent, do users want us to put our time and resources into the next frame or into the old frames just cleaning things up? And so it's, to me, what we've come up with is, our principle is, if the frame is not broken and it's functional and people aren't having a ton of problems with it, then we should not invest the resources in it. Because what that means is it takes longer to do the header builder. It takes longer to do new frames. It takes longer to do updates to automatic CSS, because it's just time and resources are a limited, commodity. So the more we put into old frames, just for our OCD benefit, it doesn't go into new things. And I think most people would vote that time and effort needs to go into new things. I don't care that it says repeat to min max 0 1 fr in a CSS field on a frame that was built, a year ago. That's the best answer I can give you. All right, Bricks is great because we can have 3 people working on a site at once on a subdomain. Yes, kind of. There have been instances where things you do and you save them, it's not actually done. And like even with us, 3, 4, 5 times, I've built a whole frame. Guys, this is the work people don't even see. Built a whole frame, spent 2 hours on it. Save. I spammed the save button, okay? Everything is the way I want it. Everything's perfect. And I'm like, I need Tobias to review this, or I need Andrea to review this. And so I move the card in Basecamp, and it's now in the review column, and I assign it to Tobias or Andrea or whoever, and then I get a ping. I get a ping in Basecamp, and it says, there's no classes. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no classes? And then I open it, and there's no classes. And why? Well, because somebody was working on the site and had a tab open and something. I don't know what happened, but the fucking Bricks gremlins ate all the classes, and I got to do it all again. So 2 hours just lit on fire. That's happened 3, 4, 5 times. Doesn't happen often, but it is a possibility. And so we've kind of just said, hey, let's make sure nobody's got tabs open, nobody's in the thing before somebody else does a significant amount of work, because there is the possibility that the gremlins eat all of that work. And I haven't found the exact like formula for when that happens, but it is a possibility. So just be careful, Brendan. I don't want you to be victim to the gremlins. When do we get more WooCommerce frames? There are more being created as we speak. Tobias is mainly working on the WooCommerce side of things because I'm allergic to WooCommerce. I get hives. I actually get physical hives. Little sick to my stomach when anything related to Woo, causes that visceral reaction in me. So Tobias handles most of the Woo related stuff. And, I think Tobias will tell you it's a pain in the ass. Woo's a pain in the ass. It's not a good system. It's just the monopoly system. So we have to do it, but it's not fun. Can we use frames to create custom product pages in SureCart? Not yet. Not yet. I've talked to the SureCart team. They have to do some architectural restructuring to make products in SureCart kind of work like they're a CPT so they can be queried easily and things like that. But it is coming. And absolutely, I'm a SureCart user. We will absolutely have kind of SureCart related frames. But a lot of SureCart uses the block editor. And so some of the stuff is going to have to happen there. Not excited about that either. But it is what it is. But there was a post in the SureCart group from Adam. And he's basically like, hey, for those of you using page builders, what kind of functionality do you want to see inside of page builders? And that lets me know he's on the right track with his thinking, right? And they're going to get it all sorted out, and it's going to be great. And I think SureCart is the one system that does have the potential to take on Woo as a clear competitor and alternative. And I am very excited about that. Okay, let's see. Can you explain where in feature section golf cards the hover animation is coming from? Check custom CSS, but could not find it. Can you explain where feature section golf? Okay. Feature, let's close this, close this, close this, close this, and delete this. All right, here we go. Feature section golf. Not features, feature. Feature section golf. Okay. Image overlay, overlay, overlay. Okay. This was an older frame. It doesn't even tell you in the CSS tab. It probably has no locally scoped variables. And I'll just let this example be my point of when I just said, here's why we abstract complexity away into locally scoped variables. Because now we're in a situation together where we have to hunt things down. All right, so here's the overlay. Well, first thing we can do, a lot of times, the inspector can be your better friend here. So we got to figure out how things are structured. So here's feature card golf right here. And obviously when we hover that, things happen. And if you didn't know, you can toggle on the hover state right here. Because even when you get into this, if you have it on here, you can't even hover, right? If you're trying to do like a what's happening on mobile situation. But here I can hover. But the minute I come off the card, I lose the hover, what's going on. So you can just toggle the hover state on and then start to look at things, right? So it says feature card golf hover transform translate Y. So the fact that there's a hover style on the card itself, yet when I go to the card, feature card golf, it's not here in custom CSS. So the next place I'm going to check, and I'm just internally hoping right now that it's there, but this is why I've always said that this is a problem in bricks. I'm going to look right here and right here and right here, and there it is. There is your transform. Deeply, deeply embedded in the bowels of Bricks Builder is a translate. And that's why I have said this is the worst, this is the absolute worst area to like put hover styles and pseudo elements, and it's like hidden away. It has no indicator on it. Look at this. It's just sitting there with no indicator. Like it's like it doesn't want to be found. It's fucking Waldo up here, okay? Doesn't want to be found. I've always said that this is a problem. This is a huge, and you'll notice that this is a very old frame, right? At some point, there was a message in Basecamp that was like, guys, we're not fucking doing this anymore. We're not putting that in this area. And everything started happening down here, right? Everything started happening down here. And now you know why, because it just sucks. It's not a good situation. Yeah, so, but that's where it is. That's the answer. And you guys saw how I figured that out, right? In the inspector, setting the hover style, and then it's alerting me to where the thing is coming from. And that tells me in bricks, there's only probably 2 places that can be. We know it's not in an external style sheet, okay? So that's ruled out. So we saw that it's not in the CSS element box. That's ruled out. Really, the only other place that it could be is in that hover state built-in thing in bricks that's a nightmare. Okay, glad we could sort that one out. I need a component place to save these that is separate from templates. Templates list is getting so long on many sites. Yes, yeah, we need folders, we need tags, we need ways to organize that. That's a little bit better than what they've currently got going. I will tell you right now, you know, again, if I was CEO of Page Builder World, just this concept in general, that I got to go to bricks and templates, this situation, no. All of that should be accessible from within the builder. The fact that I can go up here and choose a page that I want to work on, but I can't choose a template that I want to work on. Come on now, right? You guys are with me. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so yeah, the whole template situation has a lot of room for improvement. But here's the thing, where are you gonna go? Where is it better? It's not better anywhere else, right? This is the best there is. This doesn't even exist in Oxygen. Templates from third-party libraries? No. Hasn't existed, will never exist. So that's, I mean, half of us has to applaud the Bricks team and say, thank you, because what you've given us is so amazing. But then the other half of us have to be like, but I think it can get better, right? Can it get better? Yeah, I think it can get better. So let's work towards that. All right, these videos are good for YouTube Shorts. 100%. Dude, I wish I was filling up the YouTube Shorts section. I just have no more bandwidth. I need somebody, if you're volunteering, Manny, someone needs to volunteer to just come in and chop these things up and make shorts out of them and oh my gosh. I mean, that would be fantastic. I can't do any more. I'm unsubscribed. In fact, in 2024, I'm gonna have to unsubscribe from certain things that I've been doing because it's not a sustainable pathway. Or you can just send me more wine. That might help too. Does Frames will need an update from our side when ACSS 3.0 comes out live? No, I mean, I hope not. The plan is that you hit upgrade and you just get an amazing new workflow and you don't have to do anything else. Nothing will change on your website. Nothing will break. It will just be all good things. That's our goal. No migrations, no export imports, no nothing. It just works. That's the goal. Let's see. Grid Romeo. Why href for images not auto-linked? FR feature grid Romeo. Okay. So I'm going to assume that there is a feature section Romeo. So we'll just bring that in. We'll just say feature Romeo. And there we go. Is that the only, what other Romeo is there? Feature section Romeo. Let's bring that in. All right. Your question was heading, right? Feature grid Romeo. Why href for images is not auto-link? Href for images. I don't know what you mean or what you're asking. The images are not links. The heading, if you wanted the link to be a heading, that's the thing you would want to link right there. And actually in this frame, there has to be 2 headings. If we look at this on the front end of what this frame does, right? This is the heading you would actually want to link. Let's go to, so it's this heading right here. Yeah, it's already linked. And it already uses clickable parent. Yeah, this is already the way that you want it to be. You just need to go in here and drop your URL in and then the whole thing is good to go. because the whole card is clickable, right? So maybe you just didn't know where the link was. The link is here pretty much in every frame. So we'll just pause for a minute and just go back to fundamentals of frames. Every frame is, for maximum accessibility, is going to use clickable parent. The heading in a card is going to be the clickable element. And then we extend that clickable area to the entire card using this technique right here. That's either done with a class or sometimes it'll be done in custom CSS. The class is the easy way to do it. The custom CSS is the more maintainable way to do it. Both are somewhat maintainable, better than doing it for certainly at the ID level. That would be terrible. But I think you were just confused on where the heading was or where the link was actually placed. It's on the heading. And if you set it there, and you can even, use dynamic data here and query loop this whole thing. This whole thing is query loop compatible. So that's not a problem either. All right, let's get rid of that one. Maybe do a raw section for the video snippets. You just need to find the right title and soothe your OCD so we can still benefit. That is true. Hey, Kevin, I showed up to the live stream. Can we get a free lifetime license? Great question, Tyree. We need one of these questions every single stream. Not only are you asking for a free license, you're late in asking for a free license. I mean, that's 2 in 1. That's fantastic. This is great. I'm trying to dynamically insert stats from 3 different ACF number fields from a CPT into feature grid Tango stats. I submitted to ACSS GRP. I'm still a little unclear how to dynamically insert. Okay, feature grid Tango. All right, let's go to Tango. Feature section Tango. Okay, so just thinking about this. I mean, this is, I believe this is technically like a query loop compatible frame. I don't think it was designed really to be query loop compatible because there's so much going on here. There's only a single image. Then there's features over here, which you could query loop the features, but then it's like features for what? And then if you have more than 3 features, are you gonna limit it to 3 and then randomly generate the features? There's a lot of inherent limitation built into this frame. It's kind of designed to be I put this frame here manually and I manually decide what I wanna say within it, and then I move on with my life. Not saying you can't query loop it, that's just not how it was designed to be query looped. But if you wanted to query loop it, what you would need is a custom field for the stat and a custom field for the stat label. And you would need a custom field called talking point in the first place. And so, I mean, I could just, we could, I don't know. I don't want this to take too much time. I don't think it will. But if I just go add a new post type, let's just call this stats as an example. Stats. Nope, stats. Wow, can you go to the end? Thank you. Save. All right, field groups, add new, stats, and we're gonna assign this to stats, and we're gonna say stat. And the other thing would be like, are you using a repeater field for this? Are you creating a stats database? That's basically what I'm doing. I'm creating like a stats database. So I can just say stat, let's go back and look at this again. So talking point, let's ignore the fact that I'm not calling it talking points. So stats and stat label. Stat and stat, how do I want to do this? Probably just like this. So actually, the stat is going to be the title of the post. Using this methodology, the stat would just be the title of the post. So all we need is a custom field for the label, right? So like stat label. And then I was thinking like, could we use Gutenberg for that? No, because people could put too much information and we'd have to limit it somehow. So just get rid of Gutenberg. Sorry, I was just calculating things in my brain. All right, so stat label, save. So I go to stats, add new stat, and I'm like, hey, 50%. How about this? 1% churn. I don't know. That's a great stat, right? 1% churn. Okay, we don't want to use Gutenberg. We want to use the stat label. Lowest churn in the industry. All right, exclamation mark. Publish. Go back. All right, now I add a second stat, right? Like 100% satisfaction. Yeah, that's not generic. Okay, everyone loves it. All right, publish, publish. Okay, got my stats. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here and we can get rid of that tab, get rid of that tab. We can go into the builder, save, refresh. Okay, now immediately we're gonna come down, we'll open all of these, come down to our stats, delete talking point, delete talking point. Here's my talking point, query loop this. Where are we pulling from? Stats. And then I say, here is going to be my, actually this is the post title, right? And I need to, there's 1% churn. Post title, now I'm seeing probably not gonna be the best thing to do. So we'll just make a little adjustment here. All right, so we'll go down here. This is gonna be the stat label. Bang, that's gonna pull that in. All right, and then we need to come back here. See, because now it's like, actually what we need is the value of the stat, which now forces you into every stat having a specific value of maybe a specific type. How are we gonna handle percentages versus this? The easy way to do it is go back to field groups, go back to stats, and now we add a custom field called stat value, add field. We'll just use a text field, stat value. And we will want to put that above here. Okay, save, go back to both of my stats. Let's go edit, edit. Let's go 100% satisfaction. Stat value is just gonna be 100%. Update that. In 1% churn, we're gonna come down here and just say this is gonna be 1% as the value. Go ahead and update that, close that, refresh the builder. And now, instead of this long thing, I just say stat value and save. And then we refresh on the front end. And there we go, we're query looping this. But now I need a third stat. And then I need to limit the loop to 3 stats. Can't ever have more than 3 stats. It's gonna break our situation here. So I'm gonna open this up, post per page, it's gotta be 3. Now I've limited it to 3, right? And now I just need to make sure there's at least 3 stats in the database. And we're done. We're query looping this. And you're probably gonna have to adjust the size here and the styling, whatever you wanna do. But that's just a demonstration of how you can definitely query loop this and get it to work. Hopefully that helps. Okay. I'm late. Are you gonna add a tabs frame with vertical tabs instead of horizontal? Yeah, I'm working on a couple different ones. I'm probably gonna have a generic vertical tabs frame, and then we'll have some frames for specific use cases. Like I'm working on a specific one right now for a pricing table that has vertical tabs for the pricing options, which is a really cool frame. I shared it. If you don't follow me on Facebook, go follow me on Facebook. I've been using Facebook more to tease out like things I'm working on and upcoming stuff. So go ahead and do that. That last co-working with Kevin's session really helped me with that tabs frames. I did not have the success colors active, and the common and brick CSS box is really hard to read. It is. They need to add themes. That's another improvement. They need to make that like CodePen, basically. Like if that CSS box was like CodePen, man, it would be absolutely phenomenal. Okay, let's see. Question, feature grid Romeo. Why this blog doesn't have clickable parent function implemented? Feature grid Romeo. Doesn't that ring a bell? Didn't we just do that? Didn't we just do that frame? Let's see, Romeo. Just double check it. Yeah, it does. So yeah, it's on the heading. It's on the second heading, the real heading, right? Not the vertical heading. The real heading has clickable parent. Did you mention a rough ETA for 3.0? No, I mean, I want to, but I'm not supposed to. Free lifetime or slapped wrist for being late. I'm gonna try to rock and roll through as many of these as we can. Where are we on time? We started at 12, 1:15. Okay, we got about 45 minutes. When do we do more? Okay, all right. You gotta tell us what WooCommerce frames you want, first of all. Like what's missing? Yeah, what do you need more of? I am not a WooCommerce user, so I am totally dependent on either Tobias coming up with ideas on his own, or you guys saying, I need a frame like this. The best thing you can do is screenshot different things you guys want. And by the way, you can do this for anything. It doesn't even have to be WooCommerce related. Anytime you come across a layout and you're like, that is a fantastic layout. Now, if it's a layout that it's like, you would use it in a one-off situation and like never again, and many people probably would never use it, that's not really a good candidate for a frame. Like, the point of frames is it's a library full of things you would commonly use. So if it's a common use case scenario, screenshot it. If there's any details related to the hover situation or anything like that, put some notes with your screenshot and then send it off to us and say, hey, I really want this. Guys, I would love nothing more than that. I don't like hunting down ideas on my own. I like opening, basically what I have in the back end is I do come across lots of great concepts and I'll screenshot them and I put them all in a little library for myself. And then when it's time to build new frames, I open that library up and say, what do I feel like building today? And if you guys want to build that library for me, then that's even better, because then I don't even have to worry about going around the internet studying websites and looking for ideas. Let's see. The lost classes aren't getting saved in your revision history. The revision history is a hit or miss area. this undo box right here. And I'll tell you right now, like, the revisions attached to the actual backend they don't have any impact on what happened in Bricks Builder. So it's not always salvageable. And what I've noticed is when you leave the builder and either somebody else opens it or you open it again, the history's gone for the most part. That's been my experience. So there's just no getting it back at that point. Why is there an avatar wrapper in table alpha? Are you saying why is there an avatar in table alpha, or why is there literally a wrapper on the avatar in table alpha? Every image in web design, goes back to like a 101 fundamental. I think I described this fundamental in Page Building 101. A lot of actually experienced developers have asked me, why do you put a wrapper on all of your images? It's for one fact. Two facts. Fact number one is, if that image should not be a figure element, and this is it's a little bit technical. It's a little bit like you've got to think ahead. What are the potential problems we can run into in the future? And let's avoid those if possible. And what does it cost us to avoid those? That's the fundamental question about everything in web design is, what are the potential disasters going to be in the future? And what do the solutions cost me now? So the potential disasters with images everywhere that don't have wrappers. If those images should not be semantically wrapped in a figure tag, you then lose your ability to use pseudo elements. You just don't have them. And in web design, the most popular thing to put a design accent on is media. So if you look at like, it's like got little colors and shapes behind it. That's almost always on an image. It's not on a paragraph. It's on an image or a video or something like that, right? So how do those things exist? Those things exist with pseudo elements. That's the best way to create them. Well, if you don't have a wrapper on your image, you can't add pseudo elements. It's an impossibility unless it's a figure, because a figure tag does have the potential to have pseudo elements on it. But at the same time, sometimes you need more pseudo elements than two. And if you get in a situation where you're like, I need pseudo elements on my images, but I didn't put a wrapper on any of them, that's a terrible, terrible situation to encounter, because now you have to go to every single image on the website and add a wrapper to it, just so you can have pseudo elements. So I've always said, by default, when you add an image to a page, wrap it. Why? Because it costs you nothing to do that. There's zero cost. It's an extra DOM element. That's not a cost, really, in the grand scheme of things, especially compared to a builder like, Elementor that adds 80 wrappers to everything. So it's one wrapper. It's one wrapper. It costs you nothing, but you avoid potential disaster later on. If the designer gets all creative on you, right? You send it off and you're like, hey, make this pretty. And they send it back with all these pseudo elements attached to everything. And you're like, fuck. When I built the pages, before the design was done, because you did it wrong, because you didn't listen to me and use Figma first, you didn't realize that you were going to need pseudo elements. So you didn't wrap your images. And now you get the chump task of going to every single image individually and adding a wrapper to it so that you can have pseudo elements. And it costs you nothing to wrap it right away. And I could make a bad X-rated joke there, but I will refrain. It's low-hanging fruit. I don't need to take the low-hanging fruit. We can just move on. Can we build mega menus with the menu builder? Yes, sir. 100%. You will hopefully be able to do everything you've ever wanted to do with a menu with the menu builder. Now, can we succeed at still making it really easy to use? That's the challenge. That's the challenge. We believe yes is the answer, but that's the challenge. Looking forward to future SureCard frames. Okay. Happy Files works with Bricks templates. Not a perfect solution, but better than nothing. Correct. In ProTheme, you can switch from page to templates, global blocks, and also have multiple tabs on the same page. I know. I got to look at Cornerstone or ProTheme or whatever it's called. It's got like 8 names. But yes, I need to look at it. Because they also have this whole API query loop from API data versus everything having to be in WordPress. Guys, I could give you, if Bricks could query loop from an API and a JSON file, I could give you the cheat sheet for automatic CSS right now. But it doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. That's the next feature that Bricks needs. But see, this is where people get into it. You know, if your audience is beginners, this is why Elementor will never have these things. This is why Divi will never have these things. They are building a page builder for the lowest common denominator. Thankfully, Bricks is willing to give us advanced features. That's why the tool matters. I don't know. People keep saying the tool doesn't matter. The tool's the most important thing. The query loop in Elementor sucks compared to in Bricks, right? Why? Because it's built for the lowest common denominator developer. If you want the cool things, you got to be one of the cool kids. That's just how it is. So the next thing that Bricks needs to build, and it's tough, man. This is tough. This is why there's a timeline. It's not, you can't just snap your fingers. There's no magic wand for these things. And these are very complex, complicated scenarios. They need the class manager, and you need to be able to query loop from an API. Yeah, that's 2 things on my wish list right there. 2 things on my wish list. And components, but that's already almost done. So components was on my wish list. Hopefully we get that very soon. Next 2 things on my wish list, class manager, query loop from an API. All right, let's see. Is the hidden accessible text for the social icon still relevant? Yes. Yeah. Good question. Okay, let's go social. Let's go to social icons alpha as an example. There they are. This little A indicates that there is hidden accessibility text right here. Follow us on YouTube. Why is this? We can do a demonstration. Okay, I will go, you know what, that offends my OCD. YouTube, let's take these social icons and wrap with I know this isn't technically correct, but let's at least, oh yeah, see, that's gonna break it. All right, let's wrap it with a container as well. Okay, now they're not stuck to the top corner of the screen. Okay, so here we go. Let's go to Command F5.
VoiceOver on Chrome, Blueprint, Google Chrome, Kevin, window, closed, entering Blueprint web content, link, follow us on Facebook, main, link, follow us on Instagram, link, follow us on YouTube, VoiceOver off.
Okay, now watch. Let's just open all.
VoiceOver on Chrome, entering Blueprint web content, link, image, comma, http://framislive.local/?bricks_preview equals 17030098881, main. Link, image, comma, http://framislive.local/?, VoiceOver off.
Okay, I think you get the point. It's just gonna read the raw URL for what's going on there. So the hidden accessibility text is what makes it accessible and describes accurately to the person what these things are doing, because they have no text, right? You can use an ARIA label, but ARIA labels have translation issues if your site has to be translated. And so the safest thing to do is use hidden accessibility text, and that's why it's already there. Yet again, something that no other library does that I know of. Maybe Bricks Maven does. But I don't know of any others that do. It's little details like this that make all the difference. And this uses, see, we switch these to SVG, And then we have to use there's a lot of workarounds going on here. You know what? Let's just, while we're building wish lists, hey, maybe it would be great if you were styling stuff on a class attached to an icon and it actually behaved like it had a class on it, because right now it doesn't. Icon styling with classes is broken in Bricks, which is why we have to do these workarounds of locally scoped variables in the CSS box. And yeah, it's not a great situation. So add that to the wish list. But that explains why there's a hidden accessibility text and that it is still absolutely important. I tried to create a nested carousel using Bricks, but it was forcing the slides to stay stretched 100% width. Were you using our slider component, the frame slider, or were you using the Bricks slider carousel component or whatever? Clarify that, and I can come back to that. Any plan for ACSS Frames conference lately? I mean, ACSS ecosystem is expanding at light speed. Yeah, that's always, I'm actually probably gonna do an inner circle event. What I'd really love to do, if we're spitballing, I would love to do an inner circle cruise. I think that would be fantastic. So we get a live event kind of situation, but it takes place on a cruise. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, and we could do like talks, we could do coaching sessions, we could bring in a couple guest speakers, we could do a workshop, maybe. We could do a lot of fun stuff, all while being on a fantastic cruise, seeing the sights, having all the normal stuff you get to do on a cruise, excursions and that kind of stuff. There's also, that's one idea. Another idea is, because you guys know I go back and forth between Atlanta and Sarasota. So doing a live event in Sarasota, I mean, it's got one of the best beaches in the world. That's not, bad to be around. And we could set up like a meetup / mini conference kind of situation in Sarasota. That's another option on the table. But yeah, I would love to start thinking about that kind of stuff. I feel like options would work better for the stats example. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of options there. No pun intended. But to me, when I built that frame, it was just like, let's just manually put in your talking points and your stats and move on. You don't have to make this situation dynamic. Because it's also probably not a frame that's going to show up all over the place on a website. It's kind of a very unique layout. So that was just my thoughts when I was building it. Let's go back into the editor here. Okay, let's see. All right, CodePen question. I will suggest to create a frame based on GUI effect text. Okay. Submit that as an idea and I'll look it up. I'll look up what you mean. Will the branding guide page get updated with the new color system? Yes. It's actually I've been in the co-working sessions with Kevin. I've been working on it. Our goal is to make it dynamic to the point where if you turn off a color, for example, in ACSS, it actually gets removed from the style sheet, from the style guide. So like that level of integration. And it'll also show you, like it'll tell you the name of your font in the style guide dynamically, that kind of stuff. Let's see. I had to quit halfway through your Gutenberg video earlier today. It made me feel so uncomfortable watching that disaster. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to quit like 20 minutes in. It's hard to tap me out. I forged through, but trust me, I wanted to tap out like 20 minutes in, it was, it's not a fun experience. I'll tell you that. I've been working with Pro for about 9 years. I can give you a quick walkthrough if you want. I think it will help you create the perfect header builder. Theirs is really good. I guess I'll buy a license to it and just poke around with it. And I know it's faster for people to show it to me. I do like to first I like to gauge the intuitiveness of it, right? Which is if somebody shows me, then that opportunity is gone. I do think that's important. It's like, how intuitive is something? If you don't read the manual, if you don't do anything, like how intuitive is it? Now, what I try to remember is like, there's certain things that you don't want to just like rag on because you can't intuit it. Like you do at some point need to read documentation. But there is value to the level of intuitiveness of a product, right? Like that you can just pick it up and, hey, wow, I can do certain things with it without having to read documentation. Or I can tell that something makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. And in WordPress land, the reason I did that video that was published today, remember, that's a for everyone builder. Okay, so if it's for everyone, it should be insanely intuitive, you would imagine, right? It shouldn't require a lot of technical know-how and documentation. And clearly that's not the case. And I wanted to prove that point. I'd love the possibility to query over an API. Please vote for it on the ideas dashboard. It's already there. Yeah, absolutely. Is there a new style guide? Okay, that was already asked by somebody else. What are the use cases to query loop from an API? I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of them. Imagine having a bunch of data in a spreadsheet like Excel or whatever, and you wanted to build, think about stats. Think about your website stats, your analytics. Think of your analytics is pulled into a system that's expressed with JSON or into a spreadsheet of some sort, and you want to build a custom dashboard in bricks to display that data. Right now, obviously, you can't do that. But with an API, you can visualize that data. It's basically, all of that data existing as custom fields that can, instead of the custom fields having to live in WordPress, they can live anywhere. They can live in JSON, they can live in a CSV, they can live wherever, and you can pull that data in. I just mentioned the cheat sheet. Our cheat sheet is going to be generated by a JSON file. So if Bricks right now could access that JSON file and we could query loop through that data, I could just give you the cheat sheet right now. But that can't happen because Bricks doesn't have that functionality. So those are examples. It's data that lives outside of WordPress that we want to visualize inside of WordPress. A query loop that can reach into an API can do that. Nerds on a Cruise sounds like a good movie title. Christoph says he'd be down for a cruise. I think a lot of people would be down for a cruise. Can we bring wives on the cruise? Say no. Well, yes. Yes. Okay. If time permits, can you show me how you can generate extra colors, transparency, variations in ACSS? Having a hard time understanding how to edit the HSL colors in custom code. For sure. Yeah, this is really important, actually. Very important because we don't natively give you the ability to add colors in the dashboard. And there's a big reason, an important reason, that is not a technical problem that we've yet to solve. It's literally by design. Now, what I would like to do in a future version of ACSS after 3.0, maybe 3.1-ish, is you can easily click a button and create a new variable, right? Just create a new variable for something and it can have any value that you want, and you can organize your variables and labels or folders or however we decide to do it, all right there in ACSS. I want that to be the case. So you don't have to use a global style sheet like in Codebox. You don't have to use any other solution. You can do it right in ACSS, and you can do it. Okay, I'm not gonna get more into detail, but I will show you how to do it right now. You could do this in a style sheet. You could do it in Bricks. You can do it in a lot of places. You can do it on the fly. So I'm gonna show you how to do it on the fly, and then I'm gonna show you how to do it globally. So let's say we had a box like this container, and we're just gonna put height on it, right? We just gotta be able to see it. So let's do height 40. All right, here it is. And you wanted to have a background color. So you come in and you're like, all right, background color, action, and I want a transparency. So you're like coming down here and you're looking at that like, it's close. I really would love a 5% though. Like a 5% would really get the job done here. 10%, it's not quite there. Or maybe you're like, I want in between. I want in between 10 and 20. I want a 15. A 15 doesn't exist. So we want to create an action trans 15. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, we can do it on the fly. I think you can do it right in here, actually. Okay, so let's clear this out. I don't normally do it here, but I think you can do it here. So let's say I wanted that new color. So we're gonna say HSL, because we have to create an HSL string. It's all done with HSL. So here's my HSL function. Now, it's based on the action color. So I want the hue from my action color, right? So I do var action H. It's called an HSL function. So needs to be an H, there needs to be an S, and there needs to be an L. And they just so happen to be named exactly that way in automatic CSS. So you don't have to remember. It's my action color. I want the H value, action H, okay? And then we come in here and you say, I want action S, because it's an HSL, right? All right, so then I'm gonna comma, and I want the action L. And then, oh, there it is. Look, there's a color. That's my action color right there. But then what I can do is I can put a comma and put 0.15, right? And now it's at 15%, 16, 17, 18, 19, 29, 39, 49, 59, 69, 79. I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want here. So now what I'm doing is creating a custom transparency, right? And so then I can save that to my library. The problem with doing it from here and saving it to your library is you can't give it a name that's usable with a variable that you can use other places. Like it's gonna be hard to reuse this again in custom CSS. So ideally what you would do, and that's why this needs to be done in automatic CSS going forwards, but you would come into WP code box and you would create a global style sheet, usually in Sass, and you would hit save, and then you would turn it on, and then you would go to root like this, and then here's your new colors, right? There's my HSL string. I do action. You want to use the same naming convention, action trans 27, okay? And then we just change this to 0.27, and now we have an action trans 27. And then once you've done this one time, if you're like, oh, I need a 37, okay, 37, 37, save. Now you have an action trans 37. Now let's talk about, there's a shade that you want, right? So we're gonna say you want an action ultra light, okay? So what we can do is just steal this, bang, right there, and say this is gonna be 1, that's for 100%. And so what we need to say is, does the action hue need to change? No, it's gonna be the same hue. Now, let's say you wanted to adjust the hue. Oh, actually, Kevin, I want that hue to be 3 degrees less than the current hue. All right, calc it, -3, right? I think you gotta put a dag on here. So -3 degrees. So now it's gonna have that hue -3 degrees. And then you're like, well, Kevin, I guess the saturation's fine, but maybe bump the saturation up a little bit. Okay, all right, well, we'll bump the saturation up a little bit, right? Plus what, 5%? You want 5% more saturation? Okay, we can do that. Now the lightness, that's what we need to figure out. So this is where you put in your raw value for whatever the lightness is that you want. Maybe your ultra light is gonna be like 96.5%. Whatever you want it to be, you can just put your own lightness value in, and guess what? Now you have an action ultra light. Now you can use that everywhere, just like you use all the other variables. And it's just understanding HSL. And I did a whole video on HSL to help people understand HSL. But this is the power that HSL, and what these are called is color partials. And again, this is a framework where you don't see this in other frameworks, right? So when you're getting into like advanced use cases, the fact that these kinds of things exist is very, 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 very helpful. And it's just, this doesn't need to happen on many sites. There's already so many options available to you for color. This just rarely needs to happen. But if it does need to happen, it can happen, and you're not limited. There's zero limitation when using automatic CSS. It's just a matter of education at that point. It's like, all right, I gotta know these things exist. That's why the documentation is there. If you go into it explains all of this in the documentation. It gives you these things to copy and paste in the documentation, if I remember correctly. So it shouldn't be much of an issue. Now, you should be able to do this in automatic CSS. Like I should be able to create a variable and then give it a value and hit save, not in WP code box, in automatic CSS. That's coming, that's coming. Okay. Any love for frames and ACSS for other builders such as Buildarius, ThemeCo, Pinegrow? We'd love to. We'd love to. It's a logistics issue, and a resources issue, and a market size issue. Like for Quickly, I don't know the market size is there right now. For builders that don't support classes, no, that's never going to happen. It's got to support classes. It's got to support variables. It's got to have a CSS, element-based CSS that hopefully has a dynamic root selector, which is not many of them. Quickly does. Quickly actually has everything we need, except for maybe the market size. I don't know what the actual market size of Quickly is, but looking at their Facebook group, it's not anything like the Bricks group, right? In terms of engagement and look at other third-party, look at their third-party ecosystem. It's not big. So these are just red flags, right? We can't, like I've said before, we can't sell products to crickets. Crickets don't have any money. They don't refer people. They're crickets. So yeah, they gotta have a market size. All right, let's see. And I'm not saying that their audience is crickets. Obviously, they have a rapidly growing audience. And I would love nothing more than for Quickly to have a gigantic audience. Why? Because Quickly's quickly becoming a very, very, very awesome, very powerful, forward-thinking builder. So I would love nothing more for Bricks to be number one and Quickly to be number two, and for Oxygen to come to their senses and rewrite Oxygen in Vue and give us Oxygen 5.0 like we should have had, and they can be number 3 up there. And man, every builder that actually that's not dumbed down for the lowest common denominator developer, I want those builders to win. We'll all be better off. We'll all be better off. All right. Did you finally take a look at GreenShift? I have a feeling that they are going places. Yeah, I did. I did take a look. Again, it's an ecosystem size problem, I think. There were some issues when I first took a look at it. I sent the issues to the developer of GreenShift. He seems to have addressed almost all of them, I think. So I need to go back and take a look at it. But it's like it's a resources issue. Every minute I spend in GreenShift is a minute not making a video, not updating ACSS, not doing a new frame, not doing a this, not doing a that. And I've got a team that works on all this stuff, but still, it's like I do have to be involved a lot. And so I have limited time for looking at other tools, especially in an guys, page builders are a dime a dozen, third-party block systems, a dime a dozen. You got to be doing something really cool, and when I looked at GreenShift, I'll just tell you right now. Let's go here. I'll tell you the exact problem that I saw. What turned me off? This right here, Animation Builder. It's like they've made Animation Builder like one of the main things they want to talk about. I'm not interested in the slightest about animations. Not in the slightest. Never seen a single stat that animations increase conversion rates. I've never seen a single stat that showed that animations was a good thing for a client to invest in and put on their website. By and large, we have an epidemic of terrible animations and terrible websites using terrible animations. That should not be the main. If that is the main focus of a builder, that just tells me that builder and me are not in vision alignment. And so I instantly am just not super excited about it. I'm turned off a little bit by it. Any thoughts on PineGrow? Yeah, I used PineGrow a couple times. It's like using software from 1997. It has its UI is just chaos, absolute chaos for a UI. It's much more technical to implement. It's not going to ever be widely adopted. So again, ecosystem size. What is the potential? Like, I look at myself like it was very easy for me to convince people, a lot of people. I convinced a lot of people to switch from Oxygen to Bricks. And that was an easy sell. And there was still some friction, but relatively, my kids are upstairs. They're not in school. It's the holidays. I don't know what they're doing, but apparently building something, a structure of some sort. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my apologies. They're wildly banging something. So What was I saying? Yeah, it's like thinking about helping people transition to pine grow. Dude, people would, I may get shot at some point. I mean, physical violence may occur. It's not an easy transition to make. And I don't even feel comfortable leading people into that kind of transition. It's just not feasible, not plausible. I'm with you on the animation thing. Totally agree about animation. Plus, I'm crap at it. Dude, doing animation right takes a lot of time, a lot of attention to detail, a lot of know-how. And it's just not for most people. And a page builder should not be that shouldn't be their number one, number two, or even number three focus. Let's get all the really important stuff right. I will tell you, I would pay 1,000 times over for a query loop from an API before I pay for a single fucking animation. I'll tell you that right now. Like, way more value. And so what I know as a product developer is every minute that they spend on this fancy animation shit is another minute that I don't get query loop from an API, that I don't get a class manager, that I don't get all these other things that are actually important for the work that we do. We're not going to get it. Same reason I said no page builder should worry about having a forms module. You should not be, as a page builder, trying to build. Forms are so insanely complicated. You should not be focused on that. Let a forms plugin handle that. That's their area of expertise. You focus on all things that actually are page building level, right? But yet again, we see every form builder or every page builder's got to have a forms element for no reason. And by the way, you don't want your forms built with a form builder. This is why all the Bricks Forge people are gonna be on me for this, and people that use the Bricks form element. Guys, you don't want separation. Separation of dependency is a good thing. Okay. ACSS, for example, I can leave Bricks and go into Quickly and I still have ACSS, right? It's not dependent on that one specific tool. I can go into Gutenberg and still have ACSS. I can go into Oxygen and still have ACSS, and many more coming forward in the future. If you build all your forms, and if they're anything but a basic form, an intermediate form with logic or anything like that, the minute you have to switch tools, all the forms have to be rebuilt. And I encounter this in daily life, okay? We'll take over an Elementor site. Hey, no problem to get rid of Elementor, right? The problem, though, is that all those forms that were built in Elementor have to be rebuilt. And I wish I didn't have to rebuild those. If they were on WS Form, I could just take the shortcodes and put them into Bricks now. And the forms is one area that the client does not have to pay to rebuild. That's a good separation of dependency. And there's a lot of value in that. I don't like forms being tied to a page builder. It's not a good situation. Not to mention that an actual forms plugin will always be able to do way more things. Because then the situation becomes, oh, well, I use the Bricks form thing or Bricks Forge for most things. And then if I ever run into a situation, I'll just use WS form or something in that. No. That's not the approach you want to take. That's not a scalable approach. It's not a maintainable approach. I've never seen a successful agency take that approach. And here's why. Because when you're training people, you got to train them on a tool and a process. You can't say, well, we just use lots of tools and we have lots of processes, so good luck. And that's just not, it's not how agency life works. You want to pick a tool that does all the things that you need it to do, and you want to build processes around that tool, and you want to train people around that tool. I mean, imagine like you're onboarding somebody and you're like, all right, well, you're going to be in charge of fixing forms related stuff for us. And they're like, cool, I've used form systems before. Like, which one do you guys use? Like, well, most sites use this and most sites use this. And then here's their actual life, right? They go into a project and it's WS form. And you're like, oh, cool. I'm familiar with that. And so they're able to do their work. And then they hit save and publish and they move on. And then they open the next project and it's Bricks Forge. And they're like, what the fuck is that? I've never seen this in my life. And so now, instead of doing their actual work, they're off into Bricks Forge documentation land, trying to figure out how this thing works. And all fine and dandy, they waste a bunch of time, but they ultimately get to the solution. They hit publish. Now they pull up the next project. Oh, Well, we did this one in the native bricks form. Oh, so now I'm in a brand new environment. And then in this project, it's gravity forms. Now I'm off into gravity forms documentation. Do you know how much you're just lighting money on fire? Pick a tool that does everything you need, build processes around the tool, train people around the tool, deploy the tool everywhere that you can possibly deploy it, right? I can deploy WS Form on every single site. Don't even care what builder they use. I can deploy it on every single site. I can deploy automatic CSS on any builder we're ever going to touch, right? If it's not, I'm not taking an Elementor site. F that. I'm just saying no. We're not doing that. So I don't even need to worry about it in that regard. Separation of dependencies is very, very, very important. Imagine that BricsForge goes down. There's all your forms gone, right? And because it was something related to the animation component that they were working on, right? Separation of dependencies. You use WS Form every single site. You never run into limitations. There's never something you can't do. Everybody knows how to use it. Life is good. Being a bit more flexible in terms of turning things on, off, having third-party plugins actively develop newer framework, more developer-friendly, but things are equally annoying. Yep. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, 100%. Okay. Some help going on in the comments here. This is good. Think about switching from Oxygen to Bricks. This will be the last question, because I think the frames questions have been done. So, other than the query loop builder, what are the other advantages in your opinion? So Sridhar posted a really great thread in the inner circle and then screenshotted it and then turned it into a Twitter thread. I don't have it offhand. He listed a ton of technical stuff, right? Off the top of my head, first of all, the page builder loads faster, so you don't have to wait for it the way you do with Oxygen. Templates in Bricks, way better. The general workflow is faster once you get used to the difference. If you've never used Oxygen before, you're not going to notice the difference. There is a little bit of a learning curve, like changing the workflow. But once you dial this in, I mean, you guys watch me do most things in Bricks. It's very fast, right? Especially if you're using the keyboard shortcuts. The multi-component thing right here, just simple things. Like Oxygen has a section, but you don't have any access to the inner container. I can't tell you how big of a deal that is. That's a really big deal. A BFD, as I call these things, a big fucking deal. It's a big fucking deal. It causes a lot of problems, a lot of complications, a lot of messiness. This is the fact that you can just access this inner container right here. Light years better. Light years better. The block versus div. Oxygen only has a div. This has a block and a div. I initially thought that was a bad idea, but I've changed my mind because it's fantastic. If I need something to be 100% width and display flex column by default, I just add a block. If I wanted to wrap the element, like, look, I'll put a little text here. So there's basic text. Let's say I'm text. And if I want to wrap that with a div, well, first of all, I don't even think you can do this in Oxygen. You can't just wrap things in Oxygen. But look, it wrapped it with a div. It's only around the text. That's a div situation. It's not going to have display flex by default, which is good because sometimes I want things to be display block. So I just have more weapons available to me and to make things faster and more semantic. It's hard off the top of breakpoints, custom breakpoints, the whole breakpoint. Oh, let's just go right here. This right here blows the doors off of Oxygen. Dynamic root selector. And what I can do with the dynamic root selector. Attached to a class or ID. Referencing children elements from the parent, styling everything in one place. Renaming classes renames the CSS. This is night and day, not even in the same league, not even in the same universe. And it's just on and on and on and on and on. Like literally if I mapped it out, I did at one point. And it was like 30 different things. And it wasn't nitpicking. It was 30 like major differences. And this is again why people say the tool doesn't matter. The fuck it doesn't. The difference between oxygen and bricks is like 5%. That 5% is huge though, because from oxygen to Elementor is like the whole gap. It's like 95%, right? Even from oxygen to bricks is it's a phenomenal jump. Like for example, in oxygen, you can't query users. You can't query taxonomies. You wanna display the categories on a website. Can't do that in oxygen. You can't query the categories, like the names. You can query things in the category, but you can't query the categories themselves. And then you certainly can't nest another loop that gets the items from each category. Well, you can do that in bricks with a blindfold on and one hand tied behind your back. Easy work, light work in bricks. Can't even start to do it in oxygen. So now if that 5% matters that much between bricks and oxygen, think about what the gap means between Elementor and bricks or Divi and bricks. People don't know what they don't know. And it's hard to communicate all of this stuff. But you just have to believe me at some point. The gap is they are not in the same universe with each other. There is no comparison. People will open Elementor and they'll open bricks and they'll look at the interface and go, oh, these are the same builder. Clearly, they're the same. They're not even in the same universe. Not in output, not in functionality, not in workflow, not in anything. They're not even close. You can't, it's not like, oh, I could throw a rock and get there. I could take a boat and get there, fly a plane. No. You can't, Elon Musk can't get you there, okay? And I don't know what it's gonna take for people to get this through their head, but it's people in Elementor will be like, they're the same thing. They don't know. You can't ask them that they don't know what they don't know. So more or less, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's insane, the difference. That's why I'm so impressed with Quickly, because I can immediately go into a page builder and go, doesn't have this, 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 doesn't have. But I go into Quickly and I'm like, oh, it's got all that shit. The one thing that Quickly doesn't have is interactions. No interactions. Well, it kind of does. I'll tell you right now. That's another thing. Oxygen doesn't have interactions. Shit, half the shit I do with interactions. See, there's so many things, I like forget them and then remember them later. Nothing that I do with interactions can be done in Oxygen without custom coding, right? The interactions feature in bricks is absolutely brilliant. Now, I go into Quickly. Let's go over here. So this is what I've said. People have asked me, hey, what does Quickly need to do to improve? So I'll go over here. I've got a Quickly thing. I can. That's the thing. Do you think the people who are saying that Elementor and bricks are basically the same thing, do you really think they've got can I drag this? Do you really think they've got a local installation with like more or less every popular page builder at their fingertips that they actually look at this stuff in? No. 99.99999% of them don't. 99% of them have never opened bricks or another builder and looked for any important feature. They don't even know what they'd be looking for in the first place. So there's some people you just have to dismiss their opinions. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not qualified to have that opinion. And it's most of the people saying Elementor and bricks are anywhere near the same. So let's go into, this is Quickly. So let's go in and edit the homepage. And they do have, so if I wanted to create an interaction on a button, like I want to make the heading disappear when I add a button. And so I'm gonna open this, and forgive me because I do not use Quickly on a daily basis. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add a global class. Like, you would probably do this with a data attribute, would probably be the best way to do this, which I don't even know off the top of my head where those are. No, not block inspector. Typography, no, that's not global. This is the block, no, oh gosh. And now we're seeing again, why do I not like icon UIs? This is kind of why I don't like icon UIs. Backend, backend, quick hooks, quick inserter, global pseudos, quick flex shit. Okay, let's just come down here and add a button. We don't actually have to do it to look at the workflow of doing it. So I'm gonna add these are the ones with the little quickly logo are the actual quickly elements. So this is a button. So hide heading, something like that. Now, do I even have automatic CSS on this website? I technically could style this with automatic CSS if I did. Hey. All right, so heading, I have a terrible font installed on this website. So now I wanna add an interaction to this. They actually have interactions somewhere in here. Is it this thing? There it is. Okay, interactions. So on click, what do I wanna target? I wanna target a selector. What selector do I want? I think you would say class here. And then you would say like hide me or something like that. Okay, so on click, we target this. And then this is the problem I ran into before. It's like, now what do I want to do? Okay, I click this little pencil. And once again, we have a pure UI, like icon UI, pure icon UI. So I just have to decipher. I'm like, all right, copy a function, paste a function. Okay, don't want to do any of those things. Reset, what am I resetting? I don't really know. Save globally? No, don't want to do that. All right, what does the plus sign allow me to do? By the way, I'm like 4 levels deep in UI right now, okay? With no way to go back. And so now I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, all right, well, do I want to add a class, remove a class? Oh, let's toggle a class. What is the class name? Hide me. Well, I thought I already, oh, okay, so I have to have another class to target to remove this one. All right, so, but anyway, we're still going. But now I'm like, all right, I want to toggle the class. How do I save it? If I targets, target, current, select. I thought I already did this. Conditions, okay? Well, it's good that I can add conditions, but I don't want to do that right now. What I want to do is just save my progress here. What do I click on? And I've kind of looked at this, not extensively, but that's what happened when I look at it. Now, if you watch the bricks workflow, I mean, it's night and day. It's like, and I looked for more options, like, can I save data to the local storage? Well, that didn't appear to be an option. Well, that's an option in bricks. It's actually a very important option if you have to check a value when the page loads. Non-existent and quickly. So, and these are the things, it's the best name for it. And then we got to get out of here. Crockford's Law. Tony Crockford on my team. Now, I'm sure people have mentioned this before, right? But you get 90% or 95% of the way into a project before you realize the 5% missing functionality that you desperately need. Okay, that's the law. The law is you're gonna do 95% of your work before you realize, like you would build an entire site and then be like, guys, time to add interactions. You'd open up the interactions feature and go, well, fuck. This is not gonna work. That sucks, doesn't it? That sucks. You're 95% of the way into a project before you realize the interactions feature is not gonna work. That sucks. And so it happens with all these tools. It's like, man, we're 95% of the way there, but that missing 5% is not this much. The missing 5% is like to blast off. Like we need a rocket ship to get there. And it sucks. It really, really, really sucks. So with automatic CSS, we try to make sure that last 5% is covered, right? You got a solution for that. It's not gonna leave you hanging 95% of the way in. Bricks doesn't leave you hanging 95% of the way in. You can pretty much get done whatever you need to get done, except there's a missing 2%. What's the missing 2%? Well, pulling data from an API in a query loop. It's kind of a missing 2%. And if that's a key requirement of your project, guess what? You might as well call Elon fucking Musk, because that's a gigantic leap to get there. Like, yeah, it's 2%, but it's a gigantic leap that we can't easily close. So there you go. It's like, these things matter. These things matter a lot. Crockford's Law is, yeah, it is, it's there. Yeah. That quickly interactions thing is, but here's the thing, what I know now, see, when I was unfair to Quickly in my first look at Quickly. I basically roasted it, okay? And actually, the developer, Thomas, reached out to, or not Thomas, Lewis, reached out to me and we talked, and what I saw, and then I watched some Quickly videos. What I saw was a developer who is probably more responsive to feedback than any developer I've ever encountered, okay? Which is fantastic. And also a developer that is very, very transparent, gets on live streams, just like I do. Hey, we got something in common, right? I love this approach. I love the, and then I saw Quickly do things like components before anybody else did it. Forward thinking, leading, being a leader in the industry. Man, I love that. I love to see that, okay? When I first did the first look at Quickly, I didn't know anything about Quickly. And in my mind, I was in the mode of page builders are a dime a dozen, right? Show me something impressive or get out of the way. And at the time, Quickly was much newer at the time, right? And so they had their whole class system was functified. I mean, there was the icon UI. I mean, there's legitimate criticisms, right? But I was too hard on them because when you know that there's a developer you can trust, who's transparent, who's forward thinking, and who's very, has attention to detail and really, really wants feedback and really, really, really wants to make a really awesome tool, that's all that matters. You've got to go all in on that. If you get that kind of person leading a product, you go all in on that because it's rare. It's very rare. And so I just have a confidence that Quickly is going to get to where it needs to go in all these different areas. Like I can say that interactions feature is objectively awful. And I think most people would agree with me. Now, in the past, not knowing about Quickly, not knowing Lewis, I would say, let's just dismiss this tool. They're a dime a dozen. Why do I need to invest too much more time and attention on this, right? But now I know, oh no, that's actually gonna get fixed. And when Lewis fixes it like he's done with other things, he makes it better than what's happening in most other tools. And so we've got to support that. We've got to get behind that. We've got to promote that. So that's the shift that I've taken on Quickly. And if people see the shift that I've taken on Quickly, that's why. The team behind Quickly is why. Okay, so I've put Quickly as my number 2 page building tool in the WordPress ecosystem. I've got Bricks at number 1 right now. I've got Quickly at number 2. And they're very, very close. And if the deciding factor is that you want to be in the Gutenberg environment versus a third-party page builder, then go with Quickly. Easy decision, go with Quickly. I've got probably, there's some that I have not looked at that I can't exclude. It's not fair to exclude them, like Pro. I just have not, that's one I have not spent enough time in. So I'm not excluding it from the top 3. Okay, it's just, it can't be placed yet because I haven't looked at it. So in my top 3, it can't be there because I haven't looked at it. There's some others I haven't looked at. I would probably go with the Generate ecosystem as number 3 because it's in Gutenberg, but then because it's so clean. It's so clean and so fundamental. Now, it lacks classes. That's a big problem. If you had Generate with a class first workflow, it's tough to beat. It's tough to beat. But then you got to do a lot of stuff manually. Anything with, interactions, for example, you're gonna have to do that manually. I don't think they're ever gonna have that. There's just a lot of stuff they're just never gonna have, and you just got to be okay with that. But you have a insanely clean tool set for building sites on WordPress. So 3 very different tools in my top 3. If you want to know where Elementor places or Divi places in that, they're in the Inc. 500, okay? Like $4.99, $4.98, somewhere in there. I don't know. But yeah, they're on the list somewhere, not anywhere near the top. So yeah, that's kind of the situation there. All right, what time is it? Are we past the 2-hour mark? At some point, these things devolve into just hanging out. Okay, which is why you need to come to Sarasota or the Inner Circle Cruise, right? We can just do this all day long. We'll have a lot of fun. Let's plan to do this again in January for sure. I think early January, we will plan to do this again. If you didn't get your question answered, I apologize. Come into the group and I will answer it for you in the community. Keep on the lookout for a few things. Number 1, ACSS 3.0 coming in the new year. I can't put a date on it yet. Very important, critical update. I think it's going to change the game. I think, and the 3.0 that gets released, just keep in mind, the 3.0 that gets released is the tip of the iceberg. It's not the whole thing, okay? It's the tip of the iceberg. So that's very cool. More frames are coming on the way. I want to get more WooCommerce frames for you guys. I'm going to be breaking out and branching out in 2024. I've already started. Today's video was the start of it. I'm going to start branching out into the larger WordPress ecosystem to tap more people. And here's why. Number one, and this will be my closing statements. I've said that 3 times. This will be my closing statement. But it is the end of the year, so we got a lot of things to talk about. I would be negligent if I didn't seriously consider the block editor. I've come to the conclusion that there is no more like, maybe they'll change their mind on this. No, they're going to shove it down our throat. There's nothing we can do about it. The only thing we can do about it is start to consider it and start to give legitimate feedback and start to build things for it. And so there's going to be more content around that in 2024. There's going to be more ideas around that in 2024. But I can't discount it or exclude it or ignore it because that would just put all of us at a disadvantage. And then I've just decided the more exposure I get to the general WordPress ecosystem, Page Building 101 is, I probably won't get like a Christmas gift from Thomas, it's like, but you got to admit, like the WordPress ecosystem is on fire, right? And the amount of people that watch Page Building 101 and then tell me I've switched from Elementor to Bricks, I've switched from Divi to Bricks, I've switched from this to Bricks, I've switched from that to Bricks. It's just like a herd. It's just one after another, coming from Page Building 101, other videos. And so I just think to myself, like, the WordPress ecosystem is going to be better if people are using better tools. And if I have more exposure to the general WordPress ecosystem, we can convince more people to come into Bricks. And this actually protects us, okay? In a world where the page builder or the block editor is attacking page builders, which if you follow me on Twitter, I already showed evidence of this. There is a concerted official attack from Automatic, A8C, on page builders. I showed the screenshot, okay? And it's just the start of it. They are antagonistic towards page builders. We have to have numbers in the page builder camp, right? Which Elementor does. So what I've basically been saying is, if page builders start to go away, the Brickses and the Oxygens and the Quicklies will die first. They're objectively better, so why would they die first? Because they don't have the market share or the money to fight. Elementor will be the last to die because Elementor has all the money and all the people. So for us, we need to get more people on Bricks. We need to get more people on Quickly. We need to build those ecosystems. We need to build that user base. We need to get them more funding. We need to get them more everything, right? And so we can actually have somewhat of a standoff, right? Because I think it's coming. I do think Automatic they're getting the block editor into a position. This is one of the reasons why I did my video, though. They're getting the block editor into position that is their Death Star. Okay, the block editor is the A8C Death Star, and page builders are in its sights. So what does that mean? It means we have to build all the people who care about all the stuff we talk about. We have to be in larger numbers to have more influence in where WordPress is heading and what they're doing and all this sort of stuff. So it just protects us more. We don't want to ever, we just talked about putting all your eggs in one basket. You definitely don't want to put your eggs in a tiny basket, right? And the smaller Bricks is, the more exposed it is. The smaller Quickly is, the more exposed it is. The more influence these tools have, the more protected we all are. So that's kind of the direction we need to start heading. All right, hit like before you leave. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And we'll be back very, very, very soon. Cheers.